Hey everybody, DM Shay here, and I just wanted to take a second and let you know that here at DMT are constantly trying to get better and better when it comes to all facets of podcasting, whether that's content, whether that's social media, editing, and things like that. And I just want to get out in front of this and say that there might be a few times in this episode that might be a little quiet to hear. I've been working on trying to get that more steady, and I think a lot of this one is more to mic placement than it is actual levels. So I just want to get out in front and say I do apologize for that. We will definitely take that into better consideration and look to get better at that going forward. And I know we've got the end of season 2 coming up, so we will definitely kind of work to make sure that is a great listen for you. And going into season 3, that does not become a repetitive issue. But again, just want to kind of get out ahead of it and let you know we are definitely working to get better on all facets of everything podcasting, and we are just grateful that you choose to spend your time with us. So thank you so much and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Dungeon Master Talk, the podcast for Dungeon Masters by Dungeon Masters. I am Dungeon Master Kyle, and with me today, as always, is...
Dungeon Master Shay. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing great. Shay, how are you today?
It's another great day. It's D&D Day, man.
Yes, D&D Day is the best day always.
Yes.
It feels like we just talked about this.
But we kind of did.
So, listeners, today is the same day for us as the last time we recorded an episode. So still pending is my play session tonight, and we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a one-shot that we'll talk about in the future, but the past for you.
Yes.
Well, still the future as you get to that part of the episode. We won't go down this rabbit hole. We all know how confused I will get. But Shay, what are we going to be talking about this time?
Today, Kyle, we've got on the docket, we're going to talk about challenge rating. So this is something that can trip DMs up a lot, especially if they're having issues making encounters or making them too easy, too hard. What does that kind of look like? What are some ways to get around that? And I don't know if there's a way to really fix dice rolls.
Right.
And I encourage you to not fix the dice roll.
Yeah, don't get weighted die.
But if you have magical juju to help Kyle's dice rolls tonight,
I need it.
Please send it to dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. And while you're there, we just want to appreciate everyone who takes time out of their day to listen to this podcast, whether it's for the first time or the 10th time or however many times you've listened to one episode, all the episodes. We just really appreciate you being with us as we jump into the realm of the Dungeons and the Dragons. Just really are excited that you're here for this discussion. So once we get done talking about challenge rating, we're going to talk campaign.
Woo!
And we're going to talk about the Forge. We're going to talk about the Steeled Stone, and we're going to talk about Artie the Third again. We're going to kind of flesh that out a little bit. I will have an update for you at some point. That hasn't been scheduled yet, and we'll get to that point when we get there. So, that being said, let's kick it off. Challenge rating, or CR as it's affectionately called in D&D circles,
yes,
is by definition the challenge rating of how hard your monsters are.
I love it when when people have the opportunity to name something and they just name it what it is. But that does not mean that this is simple. This is something that when I was a new DM to making my own encounters, I had ran encounters via pre-builts several times. But the first time I actually went to make my own encounter, how badly I whiffed this. I wanted to make a strong encounter that was going to be difficult. And I didn't. The end. So basically,
roll credits.
Yeah, essentially. And it was largely in part because I didn't take the time to understand. I don't think it's something that is so complex that nobody's going to get it. It's definitely gotten easier across the editions of Dungeons and Dragons to set up an encounter, and there's a lot of tools out there that can help us. Mm-hmm. But my new animal familiar is letting me know that I wasn't petting her enough. But the thing here that I want to encourage everybody is, even if you use a tool, in order to check the tool yourself, in order to have those good conversations with other DMs, I encourage you to understand how the CR works how it's calculated, and we're going to get into, like, we'll mention a little bit the tools we've used, but we've talked about that in the past. So we don't really want to go into huge detail there. Talk about the easy, medium, hard, deadly scale, what those XPs are, and then really what I think is the complicated part of it, which is that adjusted multiplier based off of how many of each enemy creature you have, and how we leverage that, and kind of what we look for. And then we can talk about how we're running those high-level, those meant to be more deadly or more difficult encounters to ensure that they actually land that way in the event that, like we said, the dice didn't agree with us that it should be deadly, or the player's dice did not agree that it should be easy. How do we then work around that? So, Shay, do you want to launch off?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of still, even to this day, will do kind of more the old school way of figuring out my challenge rating. So if you have the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have a table on page 82 that will help you to figure out how much XP you're going to need for a fight. So, for example, if you're level 1 and you want to run a very hard encounter, or what they call a deadly encounter, that's going to be 100 XP. So, what that means is you have 100. Think of it like money.
Yep.
You basically have like $100 to buy monsters with, and as long as you don't go over that $100, your fight will be roughly about what that needs to be for a single monster. Now, we'll get to multipliers here in a second, but for the basics of it, what you need to know is on that chart, if you're just looking for a single monster to go against your party, you have that limit of, in this example, of $100 to make that fight with. So, in that case, if you want to do, let's just say for level 1s, you're probably going to run into like a pack of wolves. Okay, I think those are fairly easy, if I remember right. Probably like 25 XP each. So you could buy 4 monsters. You could basically buy 4 wolves to make 100 XP, and that's what your party would equally divide out between themselves.
Yeah, a wolf is 50 XP. So
okay,
and that's the basic rules. Medium-sized wolf. Of course, there's dire wolf, winter wolf, and then I think a wolf pack was a different thing in older editions.
So in this case, you could do two wolves to equal your 100. If you have players like me and Kyle, sometimes their rolls just do better anyway. So
yeah, I don't understand it. The math doesn't check. Statistic law of averages, they should not be as good as they are. But so we've got years of material now. If
you feel like your team can hold it and you want to put extra, then by all means, go ahead and add some extra monsters. Not obviously too many to make it really, really hard, but just enough to kind of make it. Yeah. But then again, if you're going for a deadly challenge at level 1, that's pretty strong.
So when we're doing this, we're adding multiple creatures to a combat.
Typically.
There is a part that the book will talk to you about, which is your multiplier for that. And so if you have 2 of the same, so like here we have 2 wolves. So we just add 50 XP together. It's 100, right? So we got
typically, yeah.
But the handbook will tell you, not the player handbook, sorry, the Dungeon Master Guide, the guide, will tell you to multiply that then by 1.5%. Sorry, not percent, but just 1.5.
Yeah.
And that's your adjusted XP. Now, I find that is true when we're talking the bigger, badder monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So in the previous episode, are mind flayers. Yes, apply the multiplier.
Yes.
To goblins, I don't tend to apply the multiplier then to determine that, because just in my experience with my party, their hits, it's far more likely that they will hit the goblin than the goblin will hit them. And so I take that encounter multiplier and I apply that when I feel like it's adequate to. And I can do that now because I have years of worth of experience of applying that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just starting out, like being told to apply that when it's appropriate is, it's not great advice.
Yeah.
So kind of my suggestion with that is say back to our low level situation, our level 1 players, and let's just say like we have 4 level 1 players and we're trying to make a decent encounter, but what's relevant to our area is goblins.
Mm-hmm.
And so we we have 4 players. We're trying to go for that hard encounter. So we're thinking 4 goblins, right? That's going to give us 200 XP out of everything if we just add it all straight together. With that, I probably don't add the multiplier. But if I go to a 5th goblin, I will apply that multiplier to ensure that I'm not creating a scenario that's like too deadly for my level 1 players. Again, remembering back, Shay and I really don't like to kill, and we flat out most of the time refuse to do so, our low-level players. We want them to have a chance to understand their character, learn them, and actually feel like they really played the game.
Correct.
So I don't apply the multiplier in those scenarios, but you take that again later when they're higher level and say we still have our party of 4 and I'm going to run them against 8 orcs. I'm probably going to apply the multiplier at that point because I don't want to create a scenario there where it says the combat's a medium, but if all my orcs line up against 1 or 2 of the players, I'm killing them.
Yeah, look out.
Yeah. So, and that's also a little bit of like run the encounter to the difficulty you want it to be. Mm-hmm. But we can talk about that a little bit later in this discussion. So kind of talking about like the tools for this. So 100% transparency players out there. I don't pull out my DMG every time I make an encounter. I do use D&D Beyond, and I have found its encounter builder to be pretty good. Now, I have found that a lot of the times, and I think part of it is my playgroup are pretty strong for their level. Mm-hmm. They rolled really strong initial characters. They've leveled well. They've done a good job of kind of working together in story of like, this is why these characters have learned to work in this way together, but have created their characters to be a strong party that's great at dealing damage and is relatively hard to hit. Mm-hmm. And so I tend to, if I want a hard encounter, I tend to make a deadly encounter. And then that means if I do want to make a deadly encounter, I do have to pull this out and really work on it carefully to make a deadly encounter. And I think only twice in the entirety of my campaign did I actually have a deadly encounter that I wanted to be deadly, feel deadly. And that was
the season-ending battles, probably, wasn't it?
Yep, end of season 1 because of the spiders, and then the end of season 2 because of dividing up the party into 2 deadly combats that were easier to track. Mm-hmm. And those both felt then that they had the weight. We had characters go down in each of them, which is what I wanted. I wanted it to feel like we were on edge. Mm-hmm. And then I had one accidental deadly encounter for a companion character at the start of season 3, but I don't think that was on me.
No, it was. I heard the episode.
It also wasn't on my players. They role played it perfectly. Mm-hmm. But that's honestly how I approach this. I will use D&D Beyond to eyeball it when I don't want to get this out and math it myself. And I think if it calls something a medium, it's probably about right. When it calls something a hard, I normally juice it a little bit to actually get it to feel hard. But again, my party is quite strong for their level.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think it really depends on the encounter itself. Like, why are we having a fight?
Yep.
So different reasons for encounters, and we talked about this in season 1 too. Whether they're going to retrieve an object, like we talked about in the last episode, trying to get that book out of the sacred tome. Whether they're trying to infiltrate a high member of society, and if they accidentally get caught doing something, or if they just decide to bust down the front door, which is totally not unheard of. And basically, so yeah, it just really depends. And honestly, if you always do one type of encounter, like if you always do medium encounters, it's almost going to become monotonous at that point. So you really need to figure out how you're going to mix those up. And I think, especially like if you pull in random encounters, which we can talk about in a little bit, like random encounters just as you're traveling, or like if you're dungeon crawling and the dungeon calls for specific layer type things to happen, things get stabbed by, stalactites and stalagmites if you're in a cave or stuff like that. That can kind of add to it as well.
So I think like what Shay's kind of alluding towards there is choosing your encounter difficulty.
Yeah. When
it's appropriate, having some flex in that, and then also how you can use stuff outside of the rating to juice or nerf your rating appropriately.
Yeah.
So I mentioned before, my party's quite strong for the level, and I have a decent size player party. If everyone shows up, there's 7 of us, and if Shay's able to play, there's 8. Mm-hmm. The challenge I have is I don't want combat rounds to feel like they take forever and a day. I don't want us to only be able to get a few round of combats in a play session. So I don't like to have giant enemy numbers. So I don't want to have, there's 8 players, I don't want to have then 8 monsters. Because then the combat takes a long time because I have a lot of turns too. So that's actually quite fun for me because similarly to how adding more monsters to it raises your challenge level, your challenge rating, adding more players to the combat kind of allows you to have higher powerful creatures to a degree. You still can't expect to throw in a dragon that's AC, AC, I was right. Got distracted by my animal familiar. That's AC is 20. I can't expect that my party will hit consistently.
Yeah.
So within reason. But there's ways that when you're in the combat, if you're aiming for a medium and it's proving like, hey, this may be deadly, you can have the enemy take some non-optimized decision making. Maybe they go for cover when they could have pressed. Maybe instead of doing their best attack 2 times in a row, if they have multi-attack,
just kind of do their basic attacks. And
don't do the cool one every time. And I know that's not always as fun for us teams, but it will be because then your party's having a better time. And you can also introduce things that help the party out then, like maybe aid shows up, maybe something happens in the environment to supply them cover that they didn't have initially. And sometimes that makes combat more fun because it makes it feel like an evolving level, like in Zelda or in Mario, where it's like, hey, I got the boss down, well, more Zelda than Mario for this.
Yeah.
Zelda or Ys, where I got the boss hurt enough, now the level changed to make it harder. And you can do that the other way. Like, this is supposed to be a deadly combat, but it's not showing to be. Maybe you can introduce stuff that buffs the villain, whether that be backup, environment change. They got, now they're just starting to use a second round attack. And in my opinion, although I've done it, but the lamest version, because it's not obvious to the party, kind of just giving them a mid-round heal.
Yeah.
I've done that before where it's like, hey, this was supposed to be a hard fight. They hit a lot early. I don't want to take away from them, but I'm just going to bump his, he rolled medium on his health allotment when I rolled the character. I'm just going to give him 20. And see, they don't know it. I hate doing that, but it was just this wasn't a scenario where the environment change made sense and backup didn't make sense.
Right.
But I wanted this combat to feel earned by the players. But then I monitored that to make sure that adding that extra 20 then didn't cause a character death.
Yes.
When they would have otherwise avoided it because they did so well early.
It's kind of like a floating pool of hit points if they need it or not. But
yep.
I think something else too that will play into it is if you have a monster that's able to get a sneak attack on a group. For example, if your group is traveling somewhere and they get a pack of doppelgangers that sneak up on them, right? If they get the jump on them and they get sneak attack on the whole group, that, depending on what level they are, that could be a serious round for them because they're going to get hit basically 2 times in a row before they can respond.
Yep.
Because you get that sneak attack round and then you get your actual round depending on how well they do on their initiative. So definitely keep that in mind too if the terrain allows for special monsters to get the jump on them, or if for whatever reason your lookout on the night is a little more tired than they should be and they roll a bad check and so they get snuck up on.
Yep. And we mentioned earlier that adding more party increases the level that you can have to just in case listeners out there, if you're either it's been a while since you've looked or you're just unfamiliar with how this works, maybe you're a new DM. And so my experienced DMs, please bear with me for a minute. So let's just say, for example, looking at building we have a party of 4 and they're all level 4.
Okay.
And we want a medium level encounter. So we want to figure out what's our threshold. Well, your threshold is not 250, even though a medium 4th level encounter difficulty is 250. That chart is really if you have 1 of that level. So if you want to make this a medium for 4 of that, you're going to take 4 times 250. Now, I did choose this one specifically because 250 is easy to math for number, 4, so you guys didn't see me fumble it live.
Yes, that's
now
1,000.
We have our 1,000 XP. So we can go get, for a party of 4, having 4 villains isn't that bad. So we can go get 4 250 XP creatures. Then we have to do the multiplier. We're going to be over.
Which is 2, yeah.
Yep. So we take that multiplied by 2. So we really should only take 2 250s. But then at that point, that multiplier is 1.5. So see how that didn't work.
Yeah.
So really, in that case, 3 is probably your sweet spot of that medium rating, and it's gonna be a little on the harder side.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go get one creature that's got an XP value of 1,000.
Yeah.
And being what I found is erring a little over or a little under is not a bad thing. Typically, it's easier to go a tad over and walk it back in the combat than it is to take it a tad under and try to oomph it.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like my golf fans out there. It's easier to take off a club than it is to try to put extra on it. It's kind of the same in combat.
Then there's golfers like me who just pick the ball up and throw it because it's going to fly a lot farther and truer that way.
I'll work on an analogy for you in the future, Shay.
Okay, so going back to kind of the basics for the newer DMs here. So easy, think about like, it's obviously it's going to be an easy fight. A medium, you're going to look at like maybe 2 scary monsters tops. Hard, you could probably have like one big guy and then probably 3-4 little minions, and then deadly could be like you're taking on a dragon, like an ancient dragon, like You're taking on a lich, you're taking on Asmodeus, God help.
But also that depends on the level you are. So like obviously a level 1, a lich is a very deadly encounter.
Oh,
that's a guaranteed TPK.
I wouldn't even call that an encounter.
Yeah, it's not. It's a scheduled death for the party. Listen, in DMs, honestly, that's not a terrible thing. I have actually played a few video games where right off the bat you encounter who the final boss is going to be, and they wipe the floor with you. Why? Because that now paints them as a Darth Vader-esque character for your party and your campaign. Here's the key. They didn't finish you.
No.
You weren't worth getting finished. You're left, either they assumed they left you to perish, or they thought, you know what, you're not a problem. I saw how easily I handled you.
Pretty much, yeah.
So then they move on. And that's something that we can do as DMs. Sometimes it can be an intentional moment of, hey, you're gonna lose this encounter. Now, know your players when you do that. Some players, they play D&D once a month. They come to have a good time, fun jokes, laughing moments. You're not going to play again for a full another month or more. So, read the room a little on that. But if you have a play group that's like, hey, we might only meet monthly, but we are invested in this. We're invested in this story. We're invested in this world. Then I think that can work better. Or this is our second campaign together. We know what we want, and we know that it's going to go more than one session, so it's okay if we do this. The other thing players to think about, and it's a little bit further in the DMG, but still the same chapter, and you can look at this as just like your kind of straightforward, well, we're going on an adventure here, and we're not at like a major story beat for this encounter, but I want to make sure that they get some XP. How much should I give? And that can kind of fuel what you schedule for your encounter. And that's the Adventuring Day XP chart. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Shay might be able to get you the page number. I'm looking at it digitally.
84.
Thank you, 84. So this will kind of give you an idea of just like what the average amount of adjusted XP you should target in a day for them to get per character at each level to ensure that you're moving along. And I don't use this strictly. I do use it as a rough recommendation. I tend to do my party's leveling more milestone style, but this is a great, if I'm just looking for, hey, it's been a minute, I want an encounter in this that's going to be all right for them, and then we're going to do more. Let me just go look at what I should expect to plan into this for them to really feel like they've accomplished something at this level.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about daily XP, it helps to keep, like you're saying, keeps the game moving to where you're not relying on just combats or just skills challenges in general. You have another way to kind of reward roleplay, to be honest with you. If you have 2 days worth of fighting, in-game days worth of fighting, you may not need to reward that much roleplay. Now, if you're really putting a heavy precedent on having great roleplay, then I would encourage you to even go more than a little bit more than the Adventuring Day XP, just to really help solidify, like, this is what this group is about. Like, we are really into the role play, we're really into the combat, like all the things. So that could be a way to kind of get them into that as well.
Yeah, if you consider your group a roleplay heavy group, but you don't give XP for roleplay, that means that even though that's what you spend the majority of your time on, what you're valuing with what's essentially the premium currency of the game is just the combat.
Mm-hmm.
So I do, backpacking off what Shay said there, like, keep that in mind for how much you want to give out for roleplay as well, to ensure that that's getting the weight and value, and that just, reward your party for what they say they want to do and what you say you want to be doing too. All right, listeners, so that is our kind of a little bit more detailed take on combat ratings than last time, when in Season 1 we kind of just went more into how Shay and I build encounters. This time we were trying to get a little bit more into, like, hey, you're trying to actually schedule this out, really work it. How can you ensure that you're hitting the mark? And my just kind of last thing on it is, I don't think any of this is ever a super exact science, but once you work it and you understand your party and you do it enough, you really get so you can eyeball it. So I do just suggest keep giving it another shot. When it misses, don't beat yourself up. All of us have that one that missed. I have those 10 that missed. It's fine.
Yeah, we've all got plenty of them.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're first starting out, you're like, oh my gosh, like, how do I keep my players engaged without beating them up? You know what I mean? Like, or overly beating them to a pulp.
Yep.
Like, that's not the point. Obviously, we're trying to just play the game. So, yeah, I would really utilize the chart. And if you have D&D Beyond and the Encounter Builder, sometimes it's good to go just back in the book and kind of fact check it a little bit.
Yep. Because,
I mean, not that technology is bad, but technology can be a little off sometimes. And, modifiers can be a little bit off too. So, it's always good to double check the book every once in a while.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I basically do mine. Like I said, the only thing I really use technology for is my maps, because I have people in multiple places.
So, to the campaign realm,
dun, 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 dun.
What is going on over there, Shay?
Last time on Dungeon Master Talk.
That's not our music. That's nobody's music.
Bum, bum, bum. Anyway. And don't sue us, please. So, last time we talked about the Sacred Tome. We talked about how the library was built, who built it, and we talked about how there was, like, kind of the main floor, and then there was the underground floor, and the Lich. No, the Mind Flare.
Yes, not the Lich yet. We didn't kill the party.
We haven't killed the party.
Yes.
Let's not do that yet.
If you running this killed the party, we are sorry, but we didn't plan on you to.
Well, here's the thing. If you killed the party already, you need to start over and do it again.
Yes, try again. Tell them that they got a new... The creators gave them a extra life coin.
You have a +1 mulligan to your character sheet.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this time we are going to dive into Artie's place, the Steeled Stone.
Is it too late to just rename it Artie's place?
Artie's place?
Artie's Trace. Because he's Artie the Third.
I mean, that's what Artie would call it.
Yes.
But
he's like, go to my house. And they're like, where's that? He's like, the Steeled Forge.
So let's figure out, like, what does the Steeled Stone look like? What are we going to encounter? Yep. And what's the main point of getting possession, or taking back the property, quote unquote, of the Steeled Stone in relation to not just Artie, as we've kind of talked about, like him kind of coming back to Silver Forge and helping the party in that respect. So, like, what is it about the Steeled Stone?
So I think, like, why Artie cares. So basically, I think for Artie, his want to be here is his extreme desire to continue creating, and he probably, honestly, after being asked to restore the tome, it's kind of a demand. He's like, if I'm going to do this for you, then you also need to get back my forge for me. So I have access to it so I can create. I think why Maymon wants it, why the Broken Divine wants this done is, well, just quite frankly, in the world, there's not a lot of functioning forges left that are capable of producing beyond your basic weaponry. And I think in order for them to really protect their goal of ushering their god back into this world, they feel the deep need to really just amass this power, because it's going to take power to bring the god back. It's also going to take power to fight off anyone who would turn against them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just an extreme desire to have that. And I think for Maymah herself, it's also just, I think at this point we want kind of her emotional motivation to be really that of, hey, politically I am now for the first time ever in this community challenged. For realsy. Like, this party, they're just knocking it out of the park one after another. I need a foothold of some power that they will not have dominion over, that they cannot challenge me in case I need to take them out.
Oh, the whole time, like, she's still kind of trying to keep her cool and not let anybody know that she's actually still part of this whole.
I think outwardly to the party, she's kind of like, fine, whatever, do this for Artie, because we need him to restore the tone. To Artie, I think she's trying to win him over.
Okay.
And so she's like, probably like, listen, they didn't want to do it. I'm making them do this for you.
Yeah. Kind of a twist his arm kind of thing.
Yeah, just kind of like playing both sides a little bit. Trying to make sure that Artie's never too enamored with the party. Like, the party did save him, but then she's the one that gets his ear. The party goes out on an adventure, and she can talk to him. She can really, really manipulate that narrative, which I think is her biggest strength, is when she has someone's ear consistently. And that's also why she has that distrust of the party, because by nature, she doesn't have that time with them, because they're constantly questing, and they're kind of earning the favor of the town. When they say that they want to do stuff, then the town's like, yeah, this is great. The party said it. So they've really earned the favor of the town in that regard.
So, okay, so are we saving him from the Steel Stone and then coming back to fix it?
I think it's like they rescued him from there, and then he's like, I need that to create. Like, that's where I can do my real best work. So I need you to go liberate it from whatever has, and that's for us to decide in this episode, whatever has essentially caused it to no longer be a safe place, from why he needed saved in the first place.
Okay, so we need to make a few changes because we were kind of not on the same page with Artie. So Here's the thing. Artie, basically what's going to happen is if the party follows the plot line to a T, the party will save Artie from the Steel Stone. However, what'll happen is, like, more than likely the party will take out the guards or the people that were kind of helping to fuel this thing.
And even if they don't take him out, they're no longer going to be there.
Yes.
Right? They have no reason to hang around without Artie to work the forge.
So the thing is, like, he will kind of insist the party take him back there because that's, like, his big forge. Like, that's where he wants to be, ultimately.
But he wants to be there of his own volition. He didn't want to be there forced to build the things for others.
Yes.
And so now he wants to, like, hey, I'm doing the work for you guys and to help the town, and in return, I get the forge.
Yes.
And I'm going to get full access to the forge. But here's the rub. Before, when I was there was defenses for the forge that made it so only the guys keeping me there could access the forge. And since you ran them off, or since you finished them off, whatever's appropriate for the party, because some party groups finish people and some party groups let them go.
Yeah.
So appropriately for your group when you're running this, but they're not going to be there anymore to disable these defenses. So I need you to go take them out. And I think Artie, to make this more interesting for the party, when they try to press him for what those defenses are, he can just be like, listen, I never encountered them. They were always deactivated when I went there. So I don't know 100% what they are, but I know that they were strong and they're not to be trifled with.
What if Artie was cursed?
Ooh, I like curses.
Okay, so once he left, that's what triggered everything. That's what sets everything off into motion. And so then if he returns, it will kill him.
Yep.
Because when he tries to leave, maybe there's like a certain type of defense that tries to keep him in.
Yeah.
Like if they get him out of there, like that'll activate the other.
Yep. And maybe he does know then, because like then he's like, I know what the curse was put upon me. And maybe irony case, they even made him build.
Yes.
What would take him out. So he knows, he's like, I know I can't.
Yeah. He's like, I know what to do. I don't know. I can't get it done. because it requires more power than I have to.
Yeah, so then what would be good for that?
Well, since Artie is an artificer.
Yes, he's... So explosions?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Alchemy out the nose. And the biggest thing that comes to my mind is automatons.
Yes.
Because that would be, or I guess depending on the group, they could be called homoculuses. Homoculus usually for an artificer is like a small metallic type creature that would be like his assistant. Like I've seen artificers. There was one podcast that I listened to, and it was a artificer, but he had this like little tiny robot crab that was his assistant.
Yep.
So like if he was working on something with like fine tools, the assistant could help him do that. Some of them can be like a ticking time bomb. Some of them could be just like a server, or some of them could be, like I said, an assistant. So that could be something to use. Like, so there's probably some like little automatons.
Yep, I know that there are automatons in. So if we're using strictly existing D&D creations in the Tome of Beasts, there's some automatons. But I think like this would be honestly a case, and players, I like to do this sometimes when there's not a creature that perfectly matches what I'm looking for, either thematically or mostly it's thematically for me, but sometimes it's just because I want something weird and it's not really the theme. It's just that's what my heart was dead set on. And so it might be a case where it's appropriate to essentially use an existing character's stat block, but supplant the character.
Gotta reskin it.
You can, homebrewing is wonderful in tabletop RPGs.
If done well.
If done well, especially in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. So I am not a huge home brewer myself.
Yeah. Because
balancing that is very difficult.
Yes.
And I've seen it done poorly more than I've seen it done right. But there is great community creations, official tools like D&D Beyond via unofficial tools like the Reddit subreddit for D&D and Dungeon Masters. Lots of great tools online. So I just recommend that you look for, again, none of that sponsors, just things that I've looked at in the past. Mm-hmm. In this case, I think that these should definitely land more on the side of hard to deadly than to medium.
Yes.
So I think this would be a good chance that either we could have one big automaton that's like a dragon, but automaton dragon.
Like a metal dragon?
Yeah. And so basically for that, what we could really look at is what I would do if I was running this system in my campaign is I would go find a dragon, like the tower dragon, or like an adult red dragon's probably a little too hard for this.
Yeah.
So I think like a young gold dragon from the basic rules, it's a CR of 10.
Okay.
Talking in XP realm, since we were doing that earlier with this CR rating, it has 5,900 XP, which, if we're 4 level 8s, let's just get back here and look at the book, put our money where our mouth is, right?
Nom.
So let me get this pulled back up because I already clicked away. So if we want hard and we're 4 level 8s, that's hard for a single level 8 is 1,400 XP. So if we take that times 4, we're going to be at 5,600. So this 5,900 would land us pretty strong in that hard column. If we wanted to take it to deadly, we could add a couple small things with it. I don't know. This one, I really do want them to be progressing on towards level 9. So having a higher XP, higher risk, higher reward combat would make sense. But I also don't know, like the tome felt like a good place for, like if someone loses out here.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a core piece of the puzzle going on. I think this, while it will be a core piece in the puzzle, is not immediately obvious that it's a core piece to the puzzle because of the way it's more brought in primarily from Artie himself, even though Mayma immediately has great plans for it as soon as she knows it exists. I feel like a hard is probably appropriate thematically for this, is where my heart's landing, but I want your opinion. Shay, do you feel more strongly that it should be a deadly or a medium?
Definitely a hard for sure. If at baseline should be a hard.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to a deadly, because this is kind of a core piece of the storyline.
Yep. So to kind of get us there, we could.
I apologize. So stepping back.
Yep.
What if the forge fell in on, like, collapsed in on itself when Artie left, and so they have to spend like time to re-get it going again because somehow that forge is going to play into the meeting place. There's got to be something that has to come out of there that points to the meeting place.
I love this idea. So, okay, other thread. What if it's a failsafe upon defeating this dragon automaton?
Okay.
That it was a failsafe that Artie wasn't aware of. That if the automaton's defeated, the automaton dragon, Automadragon. I nailed it. I did it. I got us there. Or the Automagon. I liked Automadragon better.
Automadargan.
Automadargan. When they defeat the Automadargan, that triggers the forge to collapse in on itself.
Touch nothing but the lamp.
Oh, it could, like, not that one. Because we can't.
No.
We could have it say something cool to them. And then
you shall not pass.
Wait, again, can't use that one.
I know.
We cannot use that one. But if we have that happen and the forge is collapsed, then now it's going to take time to clear the forge. Maybe need some help, invoke some help from townsfolk, which is maybe also a tool that Mayma uses to kind of like, hey, look, their first failure.
Well, and here's the thing too, like the two places are pretty far away from Silver.
Yes.
So this is going to be like a full-on expedition to either send people down to help fix it, or to get Artie back to Silverforge, or back vice versa.
So do you think Artie would come with them to fight the Automadarg?
No.
I agree.
I think he's just one of those guys that he's in his lane when he's forging things.
Yep. He's not in combat.
No.
He does not.
He is a support guy through and through. Fighting is not his forte.
0% interest in fighting and 0% useful.
0 out of 5. Do not recommend.
Yes. He would lower your combined party level. He's got a negative. No, I like that. So it's upon defeating the Automadurgan, the forge is going to collapse on itself, which is then going to be like the next core thing as a community that they have to come together for if they're going to do it. So like, I think this is a point where it's like they're either going to convince the town folk, yes, we need to liberate the forge, which will earn them Artie's trust and favor, and that's a big political gain for them moving forward in the campaign. Or it's a big political loss, and Maymar outright gets it. Because then she can, in secret, clear the forge, and in secret, construct Artie to use it. So I think if they don't convince the party, the party does not convince the townsfolk to work with them to clear the forge, because there's no way that they can, then it's going to be a role-play-esque moment, and it's probably going to come down to some contested dice roll, where Mayma's saying, like, hey, we want, like, this is a good thing to do, but we can't do it because we need to build the town up.
Right.
And we're just not in a place yet where we can spare the resources to do this, versus the party trying to convince the town that, like, we do need to do this, and there's a town vote.
Yep.
And depending on how they argue and how they roll, they either get it
or split the town, take a few of them down there. And
if they can liberate I think if they liberate the forge for their way of doing it, it earns Artie as an ally for the party. Either way, I still maintain going forward, Artie makes good stuff for the party.
Yes, it just might cost him extra if they're not on his good graces.
Right, maybe. And if he's not on their good graces, then he's going to get won over by Mayma, and so his best stuff's going to go for her, which is going to empower her later in the game. Yeah. So a kind of a cost balance thing that we'll track.
Okay, so basically we're treating the forge as more of like a depot versus like in the library where it was like we have a magic book.
Yep. I do think then for the meeting place, basically out of this, the third thing that they needed to figure out was the meeting place.
Yes.
So they knew, correct me if I'm right, if I'm remembering right without looking at my notes, we knew the time, the date.
They knew from the time that they met Balden to whenever this meeting was supposed to take place. I think it was supposed to be about 2 weeks.
Yep. So they're probably time's ticking. They need to know.
They need to go quick.
I think that that meeting time is going to be, in order for us to make sure that we still get there, I think we need to have 3 ways that the party can learn at that time.
Yes.
So one is it's going to be just top of my head, so feel free to disagree.
Okay.
Top of my head is, one, it's something that the Automedurgan, upon getting defeated, would reveal. Like, it was a shutdown, like kind of a test for those who could enter. It was also a way of communication if it got properly shut down by either their keyword or the spell that they knew.
Okay.
They could reveal that. So upon destroying it, if they investigate its remains, they may discover it. Not like on a piece of paper, because that'd be lame. And maybe this is just a lame idea, that it could come out of the Automedurgan. And my other thought is that this is probably not something that, even with losing Artie, that it's a strong resource even without somebody to work the forge. It's good raw good.
So are we saying then the forge has it has a good supply of resources? That's why we're wanting to keep it open.
Well, we want it because we have Artie.
Okay.
The other side wants it because all it's missing is someone to.
But the point of the forge is it just for weapons? Is it just for like specific enchantments as the work comes? Or because like obviously they have to keep shipping goods, like raw materials down there for them to use in the forge. So like, is there like a backlog of so much?
I think it's more that it's just like in this post-apocalyptic land, a place that can forge real good weapons, like magical weapons.
Okay.
Is not a plenty. Like, there's not many places they can do that now. Okay. And so this is one that's set up and it's working for it. And so they probably used it to make quite a few, like, maybe they're working on building something. They were working with Artie to build something that is key to resurrecting, and at least in their understanding.
Yeah, okay. But they can only do it in pieces because it's got to be assembled.
And also to keep Artie from knowing what he's building.
That could be too. Okay.
And so under the guise of he's making this armor or this weapons or this stuff.
Okay.
But really he's making them, it's like special enchanted stuff that when combined.
With all our powers combined.
Yeah, with Voltron.
It all formed the head.
But no, instead of like creating a giant robot mecha beast at the end, don't want to go that route, but like making essentially what's going to serve as the channel, the focus.
Okay.
That's going to bring their deity back over and form the Lich. And by losing Artie, it sets them back because now they need to get somebody else or they need to re-get Artie. But if they lose Artie and the Forge, then they're even further set back because now not only do they not have the guy who can make the things that they need to bring back the god, but they also don't have the place that he could do it.
Correct.
And so I think like in order to, like this meeting place, it's probably one of those that's like, hey, we lost the dude from here, so they probably, like, in addition to it being cursed, upped the security around it. So when they first go back, it's not going to be like, oh, look, it's empty, they can't walk in, Automedurgan. It's, although...
Each sold separately, batteries not included.
Yes. I love this game. I love talking D&D with you, Shay. But I think, like, you know, we walk into Automedurgan, that's great, but it'd be better if you think it'd feel more realistic, if it's like, hey, there's new guard here, and maybe it's all, like, not just guard, but also, like, the start of a search party that was going to be sent to get Artie back. Now, how good they are, like, I don't think that they should be powerful because the Automedurgan's going to be right next. And like, if we're setting the Automedurgan to be a hard, and I just love saying that word. That's why I'm saying it so much.
Oh, hey, how about this? So in the last one, we had a bone devil that was helping to protect the upstairs, right? What if we had some like dust Miffids?
Ooh, that'd be cool. But are they intelligent enough to know?
No, that would just be like first line of defense type thing. Yeah,
I want out of this to be something that, like, from that first layer, they can get the information on where the meeting's going to be. And it's going to be one of those that they can either give you the information or they're going to literally have it on their person. So by either communication with them and convincing them to share it by whatever means your party sees fit, or defeating them and searching for through their possessions, they would find the meeting location to pair with the date. And I think to add some increased intrigue to this, I want that, like, the meeting location to be far enough that by the time they're back here at the forge and they're getting that info, it's now like, we can either go finish clearing the forge now for Artie, or we can go to this place for this meeting, but we can't do both, essentially.
Ooh, okay, what if we do this? What if we only have one Robo-Dargon, and we actually have a fiend that is kind of like the overseer of the forge?
Okay, so instead of the Automadurgan, which would be a really strong thing in and of itself because it's a dragon, we have something that's more like akin to like I don't know, like equal in difficulty to like a flesh golem.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit stronger. So like
and the only reason I'm saying that is because, like, I'm thinking fiend because like forge, fire, fiends are usually around fire.
Yep. And so like the fiend would provide the hard combat, and we have the automaton, which is what Artie knew about.
Yes.
And so the automaton may be a medium difficulty, so that they kind of get through it with a little bit of...
So the automaton keeps Artie from leaving the first time.
Yes.
What happens is, because the fiend is wrapped up and it's trapped for its magical prowess, when they go to open the forge back up, they have to deal with it.
Yeah, because it releases, by coming back in, the curses, it releases the fiend that was powering it, because he's in there incorrectly.
Yes.
I like it. So that's answering the
Done.
fiend. We've solved it. And the fiend knows. The fiend has just been in there, and
they are mad.
I think what would be interesting is, like, upon defeating the fiend, it's not going to be dead.
Okay.
It's just going to be, like, defeated, but also kind of like, its version of being defeated is it kind of realizes, hey, these aren't the people that kept me here.
Mm-hmm.
And if I stay and fight them, I am going to be destroyed.
Possibly.
But upon realizing, like, hey, you're the people that got that horrible little man out of here, I want to further ruin the day for the people that imprisoned me.
I think that would be a persuasion check of their life.
Wait, we need to have a way that tells them where the meeting place is.
Yeah, it's true. Shoot.
That's why I was like, defeating the fiend, he's going to give you that info.
Okay.
You defeat the fiend, and then he's going to fade out. Yeah. Because in a way, it's kind of like he's sticking it to the people that entrapped him there to power the forge.
Yeah. And the fiend could have a ticking time bomb in their head of, like, you have X amount of days left.
It's just like, hey, 4 days, they're going to be here.
It's going to have to be the same way with the Mind Flayer, depending on which one they do first.
Yes. Either the Mind Flayer will be like, you know what? My dying breath, this is information I know that you don't know. Or the fiend's like, hey, you beat me, congrats, but here's the information, and I'm telling you this because I don't like you, but I despise the people that captured me here to power the forge.
And fiends aren't above making deals like devils and demons.
Yeah, so it's like...
That makes sense.
Essentially, you hit them to 0 for the combat, but then DM playing them, they're not at 0.
Mm-hmm.
You then have them say, all right, you win.
Yeah.
I'm good. I want to go. I don't... Like, this isn't it for me. And in order if you let me go, I'll tell you this.
Okay, I'm down with that. Now that we've went 1,000 different directions on this part of the campaign.
We had 19 ways to do this.
We did. Okay, so I think here's what we're going to do. For this episode on the Steeled Stone, it's going to be a contingency thing. So if the party goes and gets Artie, gets him out of the forge, they have to go through the Robo-Dragon first.
Yes, to get him out. That's a big bet there. So we're retconning a little bit there. That's fine.
And then after that, Artie convinces them to go open the forge again, and then that's when they have to deal with the Pit Fiend.
Yep.
Or the Aaroness is what it's called, technically.
And I think, like, Artie sending them back things like, hey, the failsafe was the Automadurgan. Mm-hmm. You're fine. Go just make sure it's good. Make sure they're not there. Secure it, and then take me up.
I also think we need one more... Because I feel like we're getting something concrete from the Sacred Tome that we're not getting in the Steeled Stone.
Right, and I do feel that way too. Maybe is Artie missing a magic hammer? He's like, this can help me restore the tome.
Sword and magic helmet.
Or is it like, because here's the thing, like a forge is not like a key thing is a tome, a book, you can move it. A forge is you rebuild the forge.
Right.
Is there something like maybe Artie doesn't want to use that forge?
Maybe Artie already has a shipment of magical weapons that were supposed to go out already.
Yep.
And they're able to now have magic weapons by that point if they don't have them already.
So depending on your party layout, this is going to contain like magical plate armor or magic sword or magic we're going to contain options on this and kind of have like a purchase table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you don't flood it with all of it because that's going to break the rest of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But basically you're going to be able to get 4 things, 1 for each party member out of this, that's then going to have them having fun and fitting the level of the campaign.
Or there's a specific type of magic item.
What if, oh man, I'm kind of stealing this idea from parts of the Caribbean, but like a magic compass. Or what if, a way to enable fast travel.
Ooh, there you go.
A way back. So like, maybe he's like, if you go get this and you bring this back to me, I can establish a way for you to essentially portal back.
What if they try to go to the Steelstone first? The book is how to do that.
Yep.
So they have to go get the book, bring it back to Artie. He can do the thing, boom, fast track to the meeting place.
Yep, and it's going to be the way to teleport to the meeting. We did it! We landed the plane!
The tarmac's open! We're coming!
So the tome, and this is also why they were okay with it being mind flayers that would destroy it.
Yes.
They knew they'd destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
Because then nobody else could gain the knowledge of how to establish this portal to the mating place.
Yep.
Yeah, this is good, because then later Artie can be like, hey, you're level 9, and he doesn't declare that, but like, game-wise, they're level 9 now.
Oh, you look stronger, Artie.
Yeah, and he's like...
That's not French at all. So, never mind.
Not even close. But so it's like, while they use he essentially creates from the goods at the forge and having the tome to create the launch pad to go to the meeting place.
Yes.
He then's like, hey, while you were there, and now you're back again, hopefully the party doesn't die there.
Right.
But when you're back again, I can now use this to create the ability for you to, when you go somewhere else, you can activate this and come back here.
Okay, so you're saying it's like a one-shot straight to him?
Yeah, but like only after they go do the original launch point to the meeting place will because he needs time to make that.
Makes sense.
And maybe it's not right when they're back, because when we go to make that moment, if we like, hey, 10 rounds, they're here, there's some conversation, 10 rounds of combat. He didn't create this in a minute 50.
Right. Definitely it's going to take a lot longer than that.
Right. He needs several missions. It may be like that's some of the raw goods, but eventually he'll create a way for them fast travel back. So as we're climbing levels closer to 15, they're not spending so much time random encounters, and it's more like action, like events in the world.
Which is going to be fun for the DM, because you literally have to have everything prepared all the time.
Yep. And because they could just be like, we're done here, peace. And so you got to be ready with what's going on. And so we also have to be good in the core material to empower that DM.
All right, I think we're at a good spot for that. So that's kind of the overtone of the Steel Stone. So I think with that said, Kyle, let's get into some game updates.
Yes.
Hey there, listeners. DM Shay here. Just giving you an update on our game that we had this month. We hit officially session 30 for our group, which I thought was pretty cool, pretty impressive. And I don't take that lightly. Like, I really appreciate my players putting in the time and the effort to make that happen. So kudos to them, and just really grateful for them and being able to lead that game in that group. So this game started off, we were fighting a beer. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to say it, but it's B-E-H-I-E-R. I think it's how you spell it, or E-I-R or something like that. No, B-E-H-I-R or something like that. Anyway, it's basically like a big lizard serpent thing. And it's not a dragon. It opposes dragons, but it's kind of along those lines. More legs, like I think it's like 6 legs. And so, anyway, my my rolls were not going so good, so my fight went pretty quickly, and they did pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean basically dismantled it in about 3 rounds. So they were rolling good. I was rolling like dirt, so it was okay. But I actually encountered something I wasn't expecting from the group, and it was a good reminder to me that, okay, I think in the last episode I told you that they, because the players could see, like, on the map, because I do Roll20 and black out the stuff that I don't want them to see, well, they could tell that, like, where they were on the other side, like, there's just this wall that they had to get through. And for whatever reason, one of the players, I think it was my sorcerer, because that's usually how most of this starts, decided that he was hell-bent and determined to get through this wall, and he convinced the barbarian, the warrior, and one of the clerics to help him fight this wall. And oh, it was great. So, like, in-game, it took them roughly about probably 12 to 16 hours, give or take, for them of just beating on this door and calling in every favor that they had, available to them within the party. And finally, and I was like, you know what? I always joke about, my players, like, wanting to, dig a hole to China or something like that, and kind of having a negative connotation to that. But, it got me thinking that, sometimes you just kind of let the players kind of dictate the story. And they just really wanted to fixate on this wall. And I kept making them roll for it, and they were doing pretty good. And so finally, they rolled long enough. I was like, okay, you break down this wall. So that was pretty fun. And then once they got through that wall, they harvested some glands. I think they got some like scales to do some projects with on that respect too. Went around another corridor, kind of more to the north, and ended up the sorcerer was one doing the tracking, or the scouting, if you will, and he stumbled upon this, like, gallop, I think is what it's called, and he got it to the point where it basically rolled itself off this 40-foot cliff, because he was coming up this tunnel, and the Golif was guarding this bridge that was about 40 feet across, and about 5 feet wide, so it was basically like a big balancing beam. And he got up to it, started messing with it. He got it to wake up, tried to attack him, and it fell over. And then the other guys, because he'd been gone too long, the other guys decided to follow. They went and followed, and then they were all attacked by some horror hooks, which is kind of like it's like a beaked creature, almost like a vulture type head, and it's got hooks on the ends of its wings, and all sorts of nasty stuff. So that fight ensued, and that was kind of fun watching them kind of tightrope around each other and not get thrown off. They did manage to throw one of the creatures off of the bridge, but they were able to keep their balance. The sorcerer got knocked down in the fight, like knocked to 0 hit points. And I think we left off basically at the end of that fight, and we'll figure out the remnants of that when that time comes. But there is that.
Wow, I can't believe... Yeah, we shouldn't do that anymore. But
we have officially banned ourselves from doing that.
So, listeners, still vote to us. Let us know via social media or at dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. If you thought that was funny when we had that fun cutback. I think I've gotten enough of Shay's unimpressed looks for now.
Really, guys, I really just want to be like, yeah, we didn't do anything yet.
Yeah. So maybe if you do like us doing that, maybe season 3s can get a different flair. But let us know what you think. This could be the last time, or it could be one of the last few times of the traditional cutout from that. So let us know. Also, listeners, thank you so much for giving us your valuable time each month as these episodes drops. If you have any stories for us about the times that you overdid your challenge rating, or you way underdid your challenge rating,
or you hit it just right.
Yeah, let us know, and you can do that at dungeonmastertalk@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at the Dungeon Master Talk Facebook page, or on Twitter and Instagram at DMT the podcast, or in the comment section on YouTube. So just whatever is kind of your preference there. We love hearing from you. We don't have a favorite. Any way that we can hear from you is our favorite one in the moment. So please let us know. Also, if you have thoughts on this campaign, if you have thoughts on the naming of a Tomadurgan, if you have thoughts on how our brains work, that we can have 95 different answers for this moment. Or if you think you had a better idea, we will not steal your idea. I do promise that.
Yep.
But if you want to talk to us about your idea and why you think it would work better, or why you don't like or do like what we decided, please let us know. And we just love hearing from you guys. It truly makes this completely worth it. But everybody, thank you once again. And as always, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Shay.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
Peace.